This is Dano, and I'm here again with my partner and best friend, Toddy Walker, to do another podcast of Drop the Needle. We're going to carry on tonight talking about not only music, but good music, with maybe a throwback to one of the earlier podcast approaches where I kind of took the role of interviewing Toddy and letting him come back with some thoughts and comments on his side. And, we'll just see where it goes. We always roll into this pretty much off the cuff, if you can believe that. But we tend to find a way to make it an interesting conversation and hopefully bring you folks some good information, at least some thought-provoking information. And as always, I hope that now that we're starting to put stuff on Facebook and YouTube, that you'll find a way to offer us comments and feedback, because that's really what helps us not only gravitate towards the things that you want to hear, but just do a better job in general. So, Dottie, anything you want to say on intro before we start?
No, I know, we've talked about some topics that you want to kind of discuss, and I think it kind of covers the whole vinyl aspect, the golden era, and I'm especially looking forward to kind of going into that funk genre that you and I were talking about just a short while ago. So,
right.
Whenever you're ready to get started, let's.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump off the bridge here right off the start, and because the night that we're recording this happens to be the night of the Grammys, and I could have said, Dottie, I can't do a podcast tonight because I got to watch the Grammys. But truth be told, I could care less about the Grammys these days. And I'm just wondering what Todd's thoughts are about that.
It's sad that you bring this up because I used to look forward every February to the Grammys. There was great musical acts on them. Case in point, even to the 90s, Bob Dylan was on there, and him and his band were playing, and all of a sudden this dude crashes the stage and has soy bomb painted across his chest. I literally thought it was a part of the act. And Dylan's playing, he kind of looks at him, shrugs his shoulders, and keeps on playing. So that's what the Grammys were now. Well, they suck.
Well, there's a...
It's, and when you start blurring the lines of genres, and, is it rap? Is it pop? Is it country? They all sound the same. And I literally saw a country music artist whose name I have no clue. And he may be at the Grammys for all I know. But all he was doing on stage was backflips. And he got so out of breath that he couldn't sing. It was bad. And they were kind of faced with the same crap going into the Super Bowl for next week.
Yeah.
Used to look forward to the musical guest at the Super Bowl, and Bad Bunny, okay. That Mad Rabbit, they ain't real sure what to do with that.
Listen, I sent you the list. I know that you had the afternoon with the privilege of time in a deer stand, but I was looking at the list of nominees, and in some cases the winners. Toddy, if I could find one band or artist in that list that I recognized or meant anything to me, it was lost on me. It was just, what? And so just, man, throwing this to the big picture, what the fuck? How did we get here? We spent so much time talking about the golden era and the bands and the music that made such an impact on our lives. And now I'm looking at music, and I know people have different tastes. I recognize that, the things that I say are the best may not be what somebody else says is the best, but there is some redeeming quality to it. And at least, if you go back to that definition of, quote, good music, and boy, that's a tough animal to drag down and define. But even music that I may not like, I can recognize as being good music. I recognize the quality that's there, even though it may not be the music that I want to listen to on a particular night. I can't find quality in 99% of what I hear today.
And once again, I stick to my guns on this. I think this is the fallout from the digital era. And stay with me for a moment.
Okay.
It used to be you went and bought an album and you put that album on, and I'll just use the phrase, you really got to know the record. You listened to it, you read along the lyrics, and that album became ingrained in you, and by extension, the artist at that point. Now it's a single, put it out, sell it.
Yeah.
And okay, this one sold. Well, I need that band to sound like this band because that band just had a record that sold. And so they're just rolling through these cookie cutter ordeals that, well, does not appeal to a certain demographic. Might be the best way I know how to put it. And I'm
And
sure when people heard and saw David Bowie in the early 70s, they were probably, holy shit, what is this? But it didn't take long to realize the talent. He might have been off the wall bizarre. He
but you
was,
saw something there. You
a
saw
humble
something.
guy who, like I said, was just talented and all. And I don't
Yeah.
know if we get that now.
Yeah. I agree with you, Toddy. It's that, okay, so maybe somebody's breaking new ground, and in breaking that new ground, it takes a little while to realize or recognize where are they going with this? What are they doing? And then all of a sudden you recognize that while I may not have ever heard anything like that before, kind of like it. And then the more you listen to it, the more you realize that they broke down a wall. They broke down a wall, and they carried music in a direction that it's never been.
Yeah.
Pink Floyd. I mean, one of our all-time favorites, obviously. They broke down a wall, man. So anyway, that's. I just wanted to touch on the Grammys because it's happening tonight, and I could care less about watching the Grammys anymore, and it's sad. It's honestly sad for me.
Yeah.
But let's get back to maybe some fun stuff. Go ahead.
Well, and I was watching a documentary on Billy Joel earlier today that I, actually had texted you about, and he won a Grammy for "It's Off with a Stranger." Gosh, now I'm drawing a blank. Just the Way You Are. That one.
Yeah.
What a brilliantly written song. Then
And
the follow up was
I don't want to interrupt.
52nd Street.
Hold on, Toddy.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt, but that's an example of, man, that probably was not my favorite song, but could I listen to it and go, wow, there's something there. That's a good song. Yeah, I could.
Off of that album, Only the Good Die Young, to me, was a better song.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that one, and then he follows that record up with 52nd Street, then Album of the Year. And these were records that people still, and songs people still listen to today.
Right.
And we're pushing 45, 46 years from when they were released. Whoever wins tonight for Song of the Year, Record of the Year, Album of the Year, whatever, $5, that in 5 years, you'll never hear that shit again.
I'm with you, man. I wouldn't make that bet.
Take the bet.
I wouldn't make that bet. Nope.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, man. So now, trying to move into the fun stuff. Golden Era included so many different genres of music, such a variety of bands and artists and types of music. Somewhere in the middle of all of that wonderful stuff that we were jumping back and forth between Leonard Skinner, Genesis, Talking Heads, and then all of a sudden here's some Fantastic Voyage. This funk thing was going on. And us being the kind of guys that just like good music, fell right in there and said, yeah, let's do a little dancing. How would you talk about the funk aspect of the Golden Era?
There's a line drawn. And I'll use this phrase, black music pre Sly and the Family Stone and black music after Sly and the Family Stone. That and the Temptations, and I think I've said this before, the Temptations are my example here. Prior to Sly, we had My Girl, Just My Imagination, Wish It Would Rain, which are incredible songs, no question. All of a sudden, Sly and the Family Stone hit with the Stand record. And they've got Everyday People. which was an absolute game changer.
Right.
And once again, going back to the Temptations after Slime, and they came out. Temptations had to go, holy shit, we got to up our game. So now we've got Papa Was a Rolling Stone, Ball of Confusion, Psychedelic Shack. That's where the shift came about. And that shift led to Parliament, Funkadelic, Bootsy's Rubber Band, Brick, Lakeside, Slave. I mean, on and on and on. And what was different between funk and disco? What you think?
Disco relied on a recipe of 1-4 beats and just a particular style of rhythm. It was a dance-based type of music.
Sure.
It was invented to cause people to have the opportunity to know when to move their feet. And that's a whole lot different than funk.
Which was centered around the bass line.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I do think those bands that were funk bands, no disrespect to disco, by no means, but they were funk bands were better musicians. The Brothers Johnson, you had Thunder Thumbs and Lightning Licks, who was as good a bass player and as good a rhythm guitar player as you'll ever find. Think about Stomp.
Yeah.
Strawberry Letter 23.
One of my all-time favorites.
Yeah. I mean, so, the band Slave had the song Slide, which was what? A 9-minute grab you by the gonads. I'll try to clean up my language tonight. That seems to have been, I got called out on that one, but I punch you in the gut song. And like I said, every one of them got to tip your hat to Fly.
But you hit on something that I don't know how to wrap it up, but musicality is a word that comes to mind. Yeah. There's a musical ingredient that's part of those funk bands that we're talking about, the ones that just made us want to move something on our bodies. And disco, which was almost mechanized. Listen, I love some Donna Summer. I'm not going to deny that. But in terms of the musical aspect of that, the musical ingredient of that, it just doesn't compare with the bands that you've mentioned. Sly and the Family Stone, my gosh. I mean, it was almost like an evolution of the blues. And whether you like the blues or not, my gosh, the people that were our blues heroes were there because they understood music. They knew how to put emotion into that music. And I don't mean put it artificially. They were conveying to you the emotion that was behind that blues song. And that's not what disco was about.
Well, absolutely.
So another topic that I want to touch on, Toddy, is we talk a lot about the golden era, and we've defined that, 68 to 83. I don't know. That front end is always a little wavy for me because it's hard to draw a line there. And maybe that's right. I mean, I don't think that there is a hard defining line.
Well,
on
let
the
me interject
exit
with
side
this.
of that. Yeah, sure.
In this timeline that you're talking about, 8 tracks were how we all listened to music in the car. Right.
Unfortunately, yes.
We'll get to cassettes here in a few years, but at this point in time early on, it was 8 tracks. So, but you would flip open that thing and think about it now. All the people that you did that had little 8-track carriers in the car, you would have this. They would open it up. That might be Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. There might be Skinner's One More from the Road, and boom, there was the Brothers Johnson, or Brick, Ain't Gonna Hurt Nobody, but you wasn't going to see any disco in that same box. I think if you listen to rock, you probably had appreciation for funk, really and truly.
Yeah.
And
Mother's Finest.
I do think both of them are rooted in the blues, and maybe that's it. Maybe if you like A, you're going to like B, and we know disco wasn't rooted in the blues.
No, it wasn't.
Does that mean...
That's why I use the word mechanized.
I like mechanized. Yeah, but there's a picture that floats around periodically on Facebook, and sadly you were not in this group photo, but it was a group of us that I think we're in the 11th grade, and we had all skipped school, and we're at the old mill, and Yeah, just had a group photo taken. Everybody's got beer cans. I think Jimmy Lewis even has a gun, which, underage drinking and firearms are always a good combination. But Shannon Collins posed a question one time, of the people that were there. What did you listen to on the way down to the old mill? What was playing in the car you were in on the way down?
Mm.
And as the answer started coming back in, and this was going to be fall of '78, there was a Molly Hatchet, there was a Skinner, there was a Pink Floyd, there
Yep.
was a Parliament, there was an Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yes.
And the best one I think of all of them was Mother's Finest.
Right.
Because what
I'm just, I
were
got
they?
to jump
Were
in
they
here.
funk or were they rock?
Both. They were the finest
Yeah,
fusion
exactly.
of the two that I've ever known of. And my thought here is, man, way before inclusiveness became a part of my life as an adult, we were inclusive, man. And we weren't trying to
Yeah.
follow some agenda. We were just saying, bring it on. I like it. If it's good music, man, I want to hear it. And I don't care if it's funk or if it's rock, if it's Molly Hatchet, Leonard Skinner, or Mother's Finest, or something else. Doesn't matter.
And
It's good.
and I keep going back to Brick in some kind of way, and I've got to give a shout out to none other than Anthony Butterball Wilson. Remember? It went,
Ooh, boy.
Butterball.
You just blew the top of my head off, man.
I guess his last name being Douglas, we were always in the same homeroom. And he comes strolling in the 10th grade. Walker, you got to listen to this. And he hands me a copy of Parliament's Mothership Connection. And I still can honestly say I've never heard anything like it. And then
Flashlight was my theme song for a long time.
Well, you go back to our, we used to have these killer tailgate parties behind Funchess Hall. And Auburn was, I think, playing Syracuse this particular game. Well, I know it was Syracuse. And, we were doing our thing behind Funchess. We had, the stereo trailer set up and you were up there spinning the records.
Little DJ stand.
Yeah. And that day had evolved into a funk Saturday. I don't know why that's where we landed, but that was all that was being played. And I remember these two dudes from Syracuse University strolled around. Look, I said, "Can I help you?" Man, we were just coming to see who from Alabama was playing this kind of music. And I come join us. You want a lemon drop, shot of turkey? What you want?
Was us, man, breaking barriers, constantly breaking barriers.
Yeah.
And then right after that, you might have heard some Weezer.
Possibly. Quite possibly. I know you would have heard Cracker.
There you go. And that gets back to my point earlier of, I'm sorry, go ahead, Toddy.
No, and if it wasn't Cracker and Euro Trash Girl, I'd be willing to bet it was Crackers. It ain't gonna suck itself.
Listening to that last night, man.
Kudos
and
to
now
you,
think
David
about
Lowry.
think about this. Okay, I just said I was listening to that last night, and that was 40 plus years ago, and I'm out
what
here.
What did I say earlier?
I'm out here in my man cave. I've got my pool table. I spend time playing pool and listening to good music. What do I want to hear right now? Hey, I want to hear It Ain't Gonna Suck Itself. It's
Virgin Records.
And not only is it a good song, it's the best kiss-off song that's ever been written that I know
Damn
of.
Right.
But I'm just saying, man, stuff that we listened to back then had that capacity to become an ingrained part of your life. It wasn't, I listened to it this year and I'd never hear it again. It is something that has stuck with us for the duration. And that to me is at least a part
and like
of
I said,
what defines good music.
And you just, 40 years ago, those songs we still listen to today. And not just you and I. I mean, these songs are some of the most well-known songs, most played songs of all time for a reason. And it's not just because you and I put them on every day. It's because others do it. Now, I go back to that $5 bet. Whoever wins tonight, in 5 years, you'll never hear that damn song again. So, and I'm going to keep hammering
if you
on
put it that,
I
I'm sorry, Tony, but I may have misinterpreted or misheard how you phrased it earlier because, yeah, I'd bet you $5 that you're right on that. I'd bet you a lot more than $5 you're right.
Yeah, no, but that solidifies what we keep pointing to as the golden era. I'm gonna throw this out because this band came in at the very end of the golden era, and they had some stuff post 1983 that absolutely phenomenal, as did a lot of bands. But I do think the Talking Heads bridged the gap between new wave and funk. That was about the funkiest damn white band I've ever heard in my life.
No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if somebody put on Stop Making Sense, yeah, and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah. And then when you get to, well, you just said it. I mean, obviously it's a song, but it's also an album, a double live album. And that you listen to it and you just go, holy crap. And so much of that, Toddy, if you've seen it, if you haven't, you need to, but the way it unfolded from David Byrne on stage by himself, acoustic guitar, and then what was the next thing that we saw? A rhythm section. And the
Yep.
rhythm section was such an integral, basic part of Talking Heads. And as that rhythm section was introduced onto the stage, it just grew and grew and grew. But so did that level of funk. I mean, it was.
Yep.
And you just
The
couldn't
more
deny
they
it.
added, the funkier it got.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
I don't know that there's ever been another live concert recording or event that will ever surpass, at least for me, that Stop Making Sense.
now
It's just,
and I know the bands, The Last Waltz. Yeah, it's a classic in and of itself.
yeah. Oh, yeah. No doubt.
But I agree with you. And who directed was it Jonathan Demme? I think so. What he done with Stop Making Sense is, well, it's never been equaled. I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was maybe a couple years ago, re-released in the movie theaters. And me and Trent went and watched it. There was only like us two and two others in the theater, but it was done in Dolby
IMAX.
and big screen. Yeah, it
IMAX.
was just an incredible experience.
Yeah. I hear you, man. It was in our lifetime. There are certain points in time that you just, I think everybody, well, not everybody, people that really appreciate music on the level that we do can always point to Pink Floyd at Pompeii and say, wow, that was a moment. That was just seismic. And it was, but that
Sure.
Stop Making Sense. That was just something that it was supernatural. Which brings me now to next point that I want to talk about, and that is going back to our Drop the Needle name change and the vinyl context behind that. Personally, I lost track, sadly, for a few years with my vinyl collection. Everybody got so enamored with CDs and the crystal clarity that CDs and the digital realm that they existed in brought. And, in the beginning, it really did. It just seemed like, wow, this is something that is absolutely amazing. And then you start to realize that in producing that digital version of a song, you were losing part of the soul of what was originally
Yeah.
recorded in the studio when those musicians played those instruments. And it's just an artifact of the technology. I mean, the way that we were allowed to receive digital music in the form that we got it was through the compression and the use of computers to say, well, you don't need that fourth thing in the 64 bits. So we'll throw that one out. And you don't need that third thing in the 64 bits. So we'll throw that out. And before you know it, you've got this really clear sounding thing that has no soul. And gladly, happily,
go.
I have reconnected with that whole vinyl reproduction of music. And today,
Now,
it's not just me.
do
It's
you
not just
remember
me.
what was the first album you ever bought?
Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic.
Nice one to start with, for damn sure. Point there too is, and that record is still considered to this day. When did it come out? 76, give or take. So it's 50
Yeah.
years old.
Right? Boy, 50 years.
Walk This Way, Sweet Emotion are still, well, top of the heap. Yeah. But what I
I
was
will
driving
always
at,
maintain that in the millions of songs that are not only in my head but in my memory, gosh, man, "Sweet Emotion," best rock song that's ever been played. That's my opinion.
arguably, I'll agree. Yeah. And it's funny.
Arguably, I'll agree.
Well, but and here's why I'm gonna say it that way. Just this past weekend on what is it, Axis TV, they did the top hard rock songs of the 70s.
Mhm.
And Sweet Emotion come in at number 9. And I disagreed with his placement on that list quite emphatically. Barracuda was, I think, number 7. And don't get me wrong, I like the song, love Ann Wilson, but
Not
Barracuda's
more
not
than
better
"Sweet Emotion."
than Sweet Emotion.
Nope.
I think you can. Zeppelin was at the top spot. I'm trying, yeah, which I think they had 2 in the top 10. I don't remember now which one was actually number 1. Stairway, I would imagine. Stairway's kind of like Freebird. I've heard it enough.
Yeah,
Good song, but
right.
give me When the Levee Breaks all day long. Misty Mountain Hop. I much prefer that to Stairway. But to me, Sweet Emotion's top 3 easily, easily.
For me, it just
And
embodies not only in the instruments, the way they're played, the arrangement, it's the lyrics, it's the attitude.
bingo. And
It's
if
the
for no other
attitude.
reason than this one line, standing in the front just shaking your ass. That is fucking brilliant. Brilliant. What, I take you backstage, you can drink from my glass.
That's
Yeah,
my
so-
point, man. It's the whole attitude thing.
Yeah, the Toxic Twins, yeah, their first 4 records, good as anything, yeah, ever at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, nice pull on the Sweet Emotion though, and Toys and Addy. What a phenomenal record.
Man, it changed. Yeah, well, I'm not gonna say it changed my life, but it opened a door in my life that never was closed. Man, I walked through that door willingly and happily and have enjoyed every moment since I walked through it.
Never look back. That's it.
Oh, no regrets.
That is it.
So I think, hold on, just while we're talking about this, I started all this with talking about vinyl and the fact that today there is an opportunity to enjoy things on vinyl. If you didn't have them in the past, they're being reproduced on vinyl today. And on top of that,
Yep.
because of this magic 50-year thing that's happening, 50 years, I'm going to tell you, man, 50 years was a hell of a time. I mean, we were going to the moon for the first time. We were listening to music that we'd never heard, and it was good music, and people didn't, well, that's not right. People appreciated it, but 50 years later, and given the landscape of music today, look back and go, holy crap, can we go back and hear some of this kind of stuff again? And just one example of this is the 50th anniversary release of one of my favorite Pink Floyd albums, which is Wish You Were Here, which I happily received from my UPS driver last week. And yeah, it's been remastered. It sounds even, I guess, better than ever before. Folks, artists have the ability to put things on 180-gram vinyl now, which is a really thick kind of vinyl medium that really kind of eliminates the problem of any kind of waviness or dips in an album, and it really keeps the needle just right in the groove. But man, that is something that I will never regret having the opportunity to obtain here in 2026. I know that you've had an album that you've bought recently too on vinyl.
Yeah, kind of like following that same format. Things are coming back around, and albums that I've had that I've lost over the years for whatever reasons. You got the opportunity to replace them. That's been kind of fun, but to kind of just recreate your old record collection, and I'll keep grabbing them up as I can. Yeah, and flea market. Yeah, or I'll dig through bin after bin after bin looking for any and everything. Yeah, I found an album by the band Beaver Teeth. You remember Beaver Teeth?
Yes, I
Yeah,
do, man.
yeah. And
There's a deep Dothan connection right there.
bam, exactly. And so, and I gotta have it, and that was met with, who the hell is Beaver Tea? I was like, you're not going to know. Yeah, I can go through all trying to explain it, but I gotta have it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we grab them as we can at all, and I'm glad to see them coming back. Because I'll say this:
Yes.
you said all the remastering takes the soul out of a record, and I'll just say it this way: I think that was done because everybody could not be a Steely Dan. Yeah, Steely Dan was so perfection driven that when they finally finished up final product, it was going to be about as close to perfect as it was going to get. But not
Yeah.
everybody's going to be able to kind of walk that
Yeah.
walk.
Yeah, but
No,
Toddy, even when I listen to a Steely Dan album and it is that nearly as close to perfect as you can get thing, if when I'm listening to it on vinyl, it still has an organic foundation to it. It has something that
sure,
makes me feel like I'm in the room with those guys when they're playing and recording this album. And when I listen to CDs, it's like a petri dish. It's so clinical that I lose my whole connection to, wow, okay, well, that was great, but it could have been a machine that produced it.
right. And with technology now, yeah,
Oh,
I
Lord.
mean, hell, from auto tune and everything else available, come on. Yeah,
Uh,
the
it's got,
imperfections is what gave records their soul right there.
yeah, and it's gotten to the point. Okay, so I've mentioned before, I do this hobby of mine. It's a virtual band called Orbital Motion, where it's me on a synthesizer playing every part of a song, and I publish those. At the end of it, after a lot of tedious recording, mixing, mastering, and there are imperfections in there. I know there are. But I feel the need, sadly, to actually advertise. There's no AI in this album. There's no AI in this song. I didn't do anything other than play the music. And that's a tough place to get to. I can't imagine. I guess we couldn't have imagined that we would ever be at a point in time where that would be something that you really had to say as a disclaimer.
Right. But that's where we are. Yeah. So,
It's almost, it's like
hey,
pictures, you look at a picture, you don't know if it's real or if it's not. Unless somebody tells you, hey, this was altered with AI, you have to kind of stand back and, put a little bit of skepticism in it and wonder. And I just want people to know that in my case, I'm just playing the music, guys. And I think that there are a lot of artists out there. You mentioned last night, and I'm taking a real aside here, but I had talked to you about Mark Ford and a live album that I really love. I love that guy, period. But there's a live album that he has, and I don't know who mixed it, but my gosh, the bottom end of that album will rip your face off if you're not careful. It is just boom. And I assure you, there is no AI in that recording, in that mixing. And as you said, he's a guy that you see him live, it would probably be better than what you heard on a record.
yeah, yeah. Some bands are that way. They're just they're better live than they are in the studio. I think the Doobie Brothers are an example. Yeah, they were a live band. Yeah. So,
Yeah, yeah. I know their latest album, as much as I listen to the songs and I go, that's a good song. I like that song, but it's just it doesn't have that soul that
right.
I guess some of their earlier work did. I don't know what's causing that or whatever. And I'm also watching it's now in that iTunes category of new music for $7.99. Oh shit. If you're selling your album for $7.99, then you probably needed to pay rent that month or something. I don't know.
Well, let's see, where are we at on our time? We're at the 44-minute mark. You want to
Yeah,
okay.
we probably need to jump into the new music moment that Dottie likes to bring to us, and he tells me he's got something exciting and special for us tonight. So, Dottie,
All right. The new music moment minute, however we want to phrase it tonight, is a band artist called Bishop Gunn. And the album is Gypsy Cadillac.
is
Go
that two
buy
words?
it.
Hold on, Toddy. Hold on. Is that
Gypsy.
2 words?
Yes.
Gypsy Gun.
Gypsy Cadillac.
Oh, Gypsy Cadillac.
Yeah, it's steeped in the blues. I'll say that, which you'll probably figure out over the course of this. That seems to
Boy,
be
I'm
my
so
wheelhouse of what
surprised.
I like. Yeah, so, but the guy, it lyrically is fantastic. It's, like I said, Bishop Gunn, Gypsy Cadillac. Check it out. Just go listen to. There's a song on there, Isn't It a Shame? Give that one a listen, and then let me know what you think at all, because I think you'll be
Will do.
pleasantly surprised. And this is the one thing that, and I say this every week, that this podcast has done. It's forced me to listen and see what else is out there. And there's good music out there. You just got to find it. And luckily, I found Bishop Gunn.
Yeah. So that
And
kind
I
of goes
think the
back
album
to
was
the
released in mid 2025.
kind of
So
goes back to the comment I
check him
made
out.
earlier, Toddy. It kind of goes back to the comment I made earlier, Toddy, about the fact that, even though we focus on golden era and 1983, good music didn't end in 1983. That's just when the golden era of music in our minds ended. Post
Yeah.
1983, there is still a lot of really good music that has been produced and is being produced. It just gets harder and harder to find, but
Right.
it is there. And you mentioned Cracker earlier. My gosh, I'm going to just share real quickly, for folks listening. I'm a huge Cracker fan, and to the point where, as we near the launch of the Artemis 2 rocket, which, going back to Artemis 1, caused me to drive down to New Orleans to the Michoud Assembly Facility to see the core stage of that rocket being assembled. That was 10 hours of driving. I put on one playlist, and I had 10 hours plus of Cracker that I listened to. I never heard the same song twice. It's just an indication of the fact that there
Let me ask you
are
this.
bands. Yes, sir?
Could you have done those same 10 hours and listened to Cardi B?
No.
Okay,
I
I'll
couldn't have
rest
done
my case.
15 minutes. I couldn't have done 15.
Don't know if she's
That-
got 15 minutes. I don't know. But that's my point. And she may be up for a Grammy tonight. Who the hell knows?
She probably won
No.
one. I don't know, but no. I mean, it's just to say that Cracker's not the only example. There are dozens and dozens of others, and I'm not going to read you the list that I've got in front of you, but I'm just saying there's good music that's out there that's still being produced, and in some cases, it's new
And
bands that are coming along.
I think give Bishop Gunn a try. And like I said,
Yeah.
the album Gypsy Cadillac. Me knowing your musical taste, you'll like it. And that's the fun part of, I guess, sharing these bands, whether it's just between you and I or whomever else may listen to this and go, well, let me see if Walker knows what he's talking about. And they liable to come back with, I'm full of shit. Or, you know what? Well, pretty good. But that's the beauty of this. Yeah.
So I'll have to do a lot of editing on this one, I'm sure, to get us back into some reasonable time. Well, let me jump into something on my side, Toddy. I'll have to do a lot of editing to get us back into some sort of a reasonable box for the time on this one. But I don't know if there are folks out there that have watched Stranger Things, the series Stranger Things. Bizarre series. Interesting. Great. Yes. But the one thing that strikes me about that series is it really focuses and utilizes, even in the storyline, the ability of music to reach top level, multi dimensions. You've got a town and you've got this quote upside down. Different dimension. People get abducted and carried into the upside down by monsters, but reaching from one dimension to the other is music. That's what they have found is the way to reach somebody who is between those two dimensions. And it just amazes me that there was an awareness of the power of music that's brought into that series and the ability of music to reach across dimensions. I don't know, Toddy. That's a tough subject to cover in 60 seconds, but I just wanted to at least mention it, touch on it.
Oh, yeah.
There's a radio station called the SQK. It could be in the DIG. I don't know, but it was a means for people in one dimension to reach across and communicate. connect with someone in a different dimension. And whether it's that or the time machine or any other aspect of what we have talked about, music being capable of doing, music is a powerful thing. And that's why we're here doing this podcast.
Absolutely. And
Toddy,
we
I
need
enjoyed it,
more
man.
of it. Absolutely.
Yes.
That's it. Have a good one. As always, it was fun, my brother.
Enjoyed it, man.
Have a good one.